For 7 straight years I cared for my grandson with everything I had. I wasn't chasing accolades or trying to prove anything, just doing what needed to be done day in and day out. My hands rocked him to sleep. My feet paced through fevers and nightmares. And then one day my daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye and said, "We need our own space now." Just like that I was out. No fanfare.
Which city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And hey, make sure you watch till the end. Something's going to happen that you won't see coming.
No thank you. Heart bruised and pride barely intact, I sold the only apartment I had in the city and moved back to the countryside to live with my sister. I told myself I needed the peace. That maybe, just maybe, it was time to start living for myself. But peace? It lasted less than a season. The phone rang one humid afternoon. My son. "Hey mom, any chance you could come help with Tyler over the summer? He really misses you." Pause. "Oh, and while you're here, could you help cover his summer camp? It's about $5,000. $5,000? So now I'm not just the on-call babysitter. I'm their personal ATM too." They honestly thought I sold my home to fund their lives. Not this time. This story's getting a rewrite. And I'm flipping the script. That night at dinner the air felt uneasy, like a pot left too long on the stove, hissing with heat, carrying the acrid scent of something about to burn. Jenny, my self-proclaimed capable and clever daughter-in-law, poked at the green beans on her plate with the tip of her fork, her brows drawn tight like she was trying to crush the vegetables with sheer disdain. "Kylie, did you rinse these properly this time? Tyler's stomach's sensitive. You know he can't handle dirty food." She didn't raise her voice, but her words pricked like needles. I set down my bowl, a weight settling in my chest. I had soaked and scrubbed those greens twice, peeled them clean, trimmed every stem. What could possibly still be wrong? Before I could speak, she turned to Tyler. "Sweetie, is Grandma's cooking better? Or do you prefer when Mommy takes you out to eat?" Tyler looked at her, then at me. "Grandma's food is good too," he muttered. But his eyes, they were already picking sides. I felt a chill spread through me. "Kylie," Jenny went on, now softening her tone just enough, remembering that Jason, my son, was sitting right there. "Could you maybe turn down the TV at night? We have work early and Tyler has school. That show you watch, it keeps us all awake." I'd always been early to bed, early to rise. They were night owls. This wasn't the first time our schedules clashed, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. I turned to Jason. My son. He kept his head down, chewing, pretending not to hear a word. A fury rose in me so fast it stole the breath from my lungs. "Jenny," I snapped, my voice shaking. "I raised Tyler for 7 years. Every day, every night. Do you really think I'd do anything to hurt him? I'll turn the volume down, fine. But don't you dare twist things and lie." Jason finally looked up. "Mom, come on." Jenny didn't mean it like that. His tone was light, as if he were smoothing over spilled milk. "She's just thinking about what's best for Tyler. For all of us. Can't we just be understanding?" Understanding. My hands trembled. I've been understanding. I've done nothing but understand. I cook, clean, run errands, take care of your child from dawn to dusk. And this is what I get? Complaints about the way I wash vegetables. About my TV being too loud. Jenny put her fork down, lips curling into the faintest polite smile, a blade wrapped in silk. "Kylie, it's not that we don't appreciate you. We feel like it's time we had our own space. Tyler's getting older. He needs to develop independence. We'd like to try managing things on our own for a while." Independence? What a neat little word to cover up what they really meant. The truth was clear. I wasn't part of the picture anymore. I was the clutter they needed to clear out. For 7 years I revolved around their little family like a spinning top, until I had no sense of self left. And now that I was worn down, they wanted to shelve me away like outdated furniture. I gave them my warmth, and all they felt was the heat. Too much, too close, too inconvenient. After that night the house changed. It was like someone had hit mute. Jason and Jenny moved in sync, avoiding me with the elegance of a practiced routine. We used to sit together after dinner, talk about our day, watch a little TV. Now they'd clear their plates and vanish into their rooms. Or take Tyler for a walk without me. They left me in that hollow living room, whispering to myself in front of a screen, like a ghost trying to pretend it still belonged among the living. I wasn't just being ignored. I had been downgraded. I wasn't grandma anymore. I was background noise. Or worse, furniture that creaked too loudly. I tried reaching out to Tyler, offered to read him a story, build a tower of blocks. But he pulled away, eyes uncertain, cautious. Mom says I need to learn to play on my own now, he said. I shouldn't rely on you all the time. That one sentence carved itself into my heart like a blade. Children don't know how to lie. They just repeat what they're taught. And Jenny? She'd handed him the knife herself. That night, something inside me froze. The warmth in my chest began to harden, turning cold, then colder still. That night, I lay wide awake in the narrow twin bed of the cramped guest room. Sleep never came. From the master bedroom next door, I could hear muffled voices. Jason and Jenny whispering in hushed tones, careful, restrained. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. That quiet, stifled cadence was enough. I was already on the outside. I turned toward the nightstand. A small photo sat there. Tyler as a toddler, cheeks round and glowing, flashing a gummy grin straight into the camera. The tears came fast, hot and unrelenting. A few nights later, Jason stood at my door. He knocked, soft as a guilty conscience. He was rubbing his hands together, his eyes darting everywhere but at me. "Mom," he said, clearing his throat like he was about to deliver good news. "You've worked so hard all these years. We just think, maybe it's time for you to rest. Really rest." I didn't say a word. Just looked at him. He hesitated, choosing his next words like he was arranging flowers at a funeral. "Jenny and I talked and, well, we thought maybe it'd be better if you moved back to the countryside. Or got a little place of your own nearby. You know, somewhere more peaceful. Our schedule's so late these days and we wouldn't want to mess with your sleep. Peaceful. For my own good. So I could rest." What a beautiful coat of paint for what was really just eviction. They weren't thinking about my rest. They just didn't want to see me anymore. What they truly wanted was for me to vanish from their daily lives, clean and quiet. And just like that, something in me turned cold for good. There were no screams. No slammed doors. Because sometimes the heaviest sound in the world is the silence that comes after giving up. That night I said nothing. The next morning I started packing. There wasn't much. A few outfits. My medications. Some toiletries. I stood in the living room and looked around one last time. Tyler's little award certificates were still pinned to the wall. His tiny socks, washed and hung by me just yesterday, were swaying gently on the balcony line. Every corner whispered how much I had given. And now, not one of those things belonged to me anymore. In the kitchen, I reached for the apron I'd worn for years. It still held the faint scent of grease and garlic. A mark of everything I had done. Everything they wanted erased. I hoped I could hug Tyler goodbye. Maybe say a few parting words. But when I stepped out, Jenny was at the door, zipping up his coat. "Hurry up, Tyler. We're late for art class," she said, not even glancing in my direction. Her voice was cool and impersonal, like she was talking to someone at a bus stop. Tyler looked back at me. There was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Maybe even sadness. But mostly there was confusion. He mumbled, "Bye, Grandma," and let her lead him away. The door slammed shut behind them. It wasn't just a sound, it was a verdict. My role in this family had officially ended. Jason walked me downstairs. In the elevator he said nothing. Every now and then he'd sneak a glance at me, then quickly look away like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. In the lobby he pulled a few crisp $100 bills from his wallet, 3 maybe 4, and stuffed them into my hand. "Mom, just take this. In case something comes up," he muttered. "And if you ever need anything, you can call me." I stared at the bills. In that moment they felt like burning coals in my palm. I didn't take them. I didn't say a word. I simply picked up my small suitcase and walked out without looking back. One step. Then another. My spine straight. My pace steady. Not giving him so much as a window for regret. This wasn't defeat. It wasn't surrender. This was dignity. Let them think they'd written me out. They'd soon see without them I'd live just fine. In fact, I'd live better. By the time I stepped out of the building, the sky had already gone dark. Headlights flickered across the streets. Neon signs blinked over busy sidewalks. The city pulsed with life, restless, relentless. And yet, in all that motion, not a single space belonged to me. I stood on the edge of the sidewalk, watching strangers pass like waves. For the first time in my life, I felt the world had moved on, without me. Where could I even go? Only one place came to mind, that old apartment. The one my late husband and I scraped and saved to buy. A tiny place, worn but ours. After Jason got married, he invited me to move in with him and Jenny. The apartment had been sitting empty ever since. I'd lived there alone for years before, clinging to memories like they were oxygen. But now was I really going back? To sit alone between those cold, peeling walls and grow old in silence? I turned around and found the cheapest motel I could in the area. The room was barely big enough to open my suitcase. The air was damp, pressing down on my lungs. Mildew curled at the corners of the ceiling. I lay on the creaky mattress, staring at the yellow water stains overhead. Sleep never came. What now? I reached beneath the pillow and pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling as I tapped in the only number that made sense. Nancy. My sister. She'd married into a quiet little town miles away. We hadn't seen each other in years. She picked up after a few rings, her voice warm and groggy with sleep. Kylie, what's going on? Why are you calling so late? I meant to laugh it off. Say something breezy. But the moment I opened my mouth, the tears came hard and fast. I choked on every word, my voice cracking as the pain spilled out in broken pieces. It didn't come out pretty. They didn't need to. She understood everything. Wait, what? They did what? Nancy's voice sharpened, slicing through the static with rage. Jason has completely lost his mind. And that Jenny, what kind of person treats someone like that? Her fury was clear, but her voice never wavered. Kylie, don't you cry another minute. You hear me? Pack your things. Come stay with me. We'll figure this out together. Her words lit a flame in me, cutting through every shadow that had swallowed me whole. Of course. I still had my sister. When the call ended, it felt like a light had flickered back on in my chest. I wasn't going back to that apartment. I wasn't going to sit there waiting for someone to need me again. That place, what used to be my home, was now just a shrine to a life that no longer existed. It was my final emotional anchor, and it had turned into a shackle. Selling it wouldn't just keep Jason and Jenny's hands off it. It would set me free. The next morning I called a real estate agency. The old apartment might have been worn, but it had location on its side, just a short walk to the subway. The agent told me the market was hot, and with the right timing it could fetch a solid price. As I signed the listing agreement, my fingers trembled slightly. But inside I felt a calm resolve I hadn't known in years. This money, this decision, it wasn't for them. It was for me. For the first time, entirely for my future. The sale moved quickly. Within a month, the buyer signed and the paperwork was complete. When the funds hit my account, not a fortune but more than enough to see me safely through the years ahead, I finally exhaled. I didn't tell Jason. I didn't tell Jenny. They had no idea the apartment had a new owner now. No idea the money was resting quietly in an account under my name. That money was my final secret. And my final armor. I started planning carefully. Part of it I locked into a fixed deposit, not a single cent to be touched. That was my no-compromise safety net. The rest I kept liquid, for the essentials. For whatever the next chapter would bring. Then I bought a bus ticket to a small town in Maine. As the bus pulled away from the city, I watched the skyline blur into a smear of steel and neon. The crowds at the subway entrance. The blinking storefronts. The glass towers I'd once passed every single day. All of it faded into the distance, becoming just background noise. I didn't know what waited for me at the end of the road. But I knew one thing for sure. I was never going back to that house. It felt like escaping a cage. Bitter, strange, strangely freeing. Like finally uncorking a bottle you'd kept sealed for half your life. Only to realize the flavor inside was a mix of every emotion you never gave yourself permission to feel. Relief. Regret. A tinge of fear. But also, peace. Hours later, the road curved into green, rolling hills. The air shifted. Smelled like pine needles and wet earth. Clean, cool, alive. It felt like something invisible reached out and gently smoothed the knots in my chest. The bus pulled up to the town's tiny transit station. And there she was. Nancy. Standing by the platform with both hands stuffed in her coat pockets, eyes searching the windows. She looked a little older than I remembered. A few more silver strands in her hair. But her smile, bright, wide, unwavering, was exactly the same. Kylie, she called, already moving toward me. The moment she wrapped her arms around me, I broke. Like a lost child who'd finally found home, I buried my face in her shoulder and sobbed. 7 years worth of exhaustion, humiliation, resentment. All of it spilled out in that one embrace. Every disappointment. Every sleepless night. Every moment I stood alone in someone else's home, trying not to breathe too loudly. She held me close, gently rubbing my back. "You're here now. That's all that matters," she whispered. "It's over. You've got me. You're not alone anymore." Her voice was like the mountain wind, clean, steady, and sure. We drove to her house, a cozy 2-story cabin on the edge of the woods. In the front yard, tomatoes, green beans, and corn grew in tidy rows. A few chickens strutted across the grass like they owned the place. The house wasn't fancy, but it was bright and spotless. Everything had its place. Everything bore her touch. There was even a jar of homemade blueberry jam sitting by the window, catching the last golden rays of the afternoon sun. I stood at the doorway and inhaled deeply. The air was rich with the scent of soil and fresh grass. A wind chime clinked softly beneath the porch eaves. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed. And in that moment I finally felt still. City lights may sparkle, but they never warmed me. Here the earth was plain, but solid beneath my feet. And for the first time in a long, long while I felt like I belonged. Life in the countryside was slow and honest. Each morning I woke not to the roar of traffic, but to birds chirping outside the window and the squabble of chickens and ducks in the yard. Gone were the jarring alarms, the concrete glare, and the choking noise. Now the day began with sunlight filtering through the trees and the scent of earth on the breeze. During the day, Nancy and I worked side by side in the garden, pulling weeds, watering rows of vegetables, pruning leaves. Watching those tender green sprouts grow taller day by day, I felt something inside me take root again. We kept a few chickens and every morning brought fresh, warm eggs nestled in straw. Nancy even taught me how to bake bread in a wood-fired oven. That smell, golden crust, smoke, and yeast, was something I'd never known in the city. Every now and then we'd stroll to the town market to buy a few supplies. We'd run into neighbors, chat with old friends. Some of them I didn't even know, but everyone greeted me with the same warm, easy cheer, like the sunlight here. Humble but full of warmth. Sure, the work left my muscles sore. But at night I slept. Deeply. Dreamlessly. No nightmares. No cold silences. No weight pressing on my chest like that old home used to do. Here people spoke plainly, sometimes even a little rough around the edges. But it was honest. Far better than the thin smiles and sugar-coated half-truths I'd grown used to in the city. The old man next door would show up at our door with freshly caught trout. Another neighbor brought over warm cornbread wrapped in a tea towel. "Eat up," she'd say. "If you want more, I'll make another batch." And somehow, those simple words healed more than any apology ever could. Nancy and I often sat on the wooden bench in the yard, peeling string beans as the sun set behind the hills. One evening, as we shelled peas into a metal bowl, she looked over and asked, "Any plans now that you're settled in?" I smiled, glancing at the patch of soil just beyond the porch. "Well, first things first, I want to fix this place up. Make it a little more comfortable to live in." I paused, thoughts already forming. As for the rest of that money, I've been thinking, what if we started something small? The air's clean, the land's good. Maybe a little farm stay? Or we sell the veggies and pickles we grow here. Nothing big, just enough to keep us busy. Nancy's eyes lit up instantly. I've been wanting to do that for years. Just didn't have the funds to get started. But now with the two of us, we could make something really work. Watching her light up like that, I felt steady for the first time in a long while. Back in the city, I spent every day orbiting around Tyler's after-school snacks, Jason's moods, Jenny's whims. I was a frayed piece of thread, pulled in every direction, never allowed to hold shape. But now I tended the land. And here, if I planted something, I knew exactly what I'd get in return. Just as life was starting to feel steady again, the peace shattered with a single phone call. "Caller ID, Jason." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, my heart sinking in that familiar, heavy way. Then I walked to the far end of the backyard, out of Nancy's line of sight. Took a deep breath. Pressed answer. "Hey, Mom." His voice sounded off, too casual, too forced. "Hi, sweetheart," I said evenly. He made small talk for a moment, didn't ask how I was doing, didn't mention my leaving. He didn't call to check in. He called for something. "So, everything's okay out there? You doing all right, money-wise?" "I'm fine," I said calmly. "Not spending much at all." "Oh, that's That's good. There was a pause. Then came the real reason. Hey, about that apartment. The one you used to live in. Did you, end up selling it? I smiled slightly. Still calm. Still composed. Yeah. I sold it. How much did you get for it? He asked, too quickly, trying and failing to sound casual. Instead I laughed coldly. But my tone stayed light. Not much. Just enough for Nancy and me to get by. Fix up the old house. Don't worry, won't be bothering you for anything. Silence. I could practically hear him trying to process the disappointment. A few seconds later he tried again, voice low and hesitant. Mom, you know things are really tight right now. Tyler's school costs are getting crazy and... I cut him off. You and Jenny need to learn how to manage your own finances. My money's already taken care of. Locked in. I'm not touching it. At my age I need to make sure I've got something for myself. You understand, right? Yeah, he said quietly. And just like that the call ended. I stood in the yard, still holding the phone, staring out at the distant hills. The wind carried the scent of soil and pine. But there was no peace in my chest. I knew this was only the beginning. They weren't going to let go that easily. A short while later, Nancy must have noticed my face. She walked over, gave my arm a light tap. Jason called, didn't he? What did he want this time? I told her everything. She slapped her thigh, fuming. Didn't I say they were after your money? Kylie, don't you dare get soft again. They'll rope you back in the second you blink. I nodded slowly. My eyes began to sharpen. In their minds that house money wasn't mine. It was just pending inheritance. They spoke sweetly, but all they saw was an account they could tap into at any time. And sure enough, it didn't take long for the next move. Only this time it came wrapped in a new disguise. Tyler. Grandma. His voice was soft, familiar, hesitant, like the sound of old memories tugging at my heartstrings. That one word hit me hard. 7 years of stories and snacks, band-aids and bedtime hugs. That kind of bond doesn't break clean. I tried to keep my voice gentle. Hey Tyler. You miss Grandma, huh? Yeah. I miss you, he sniffled. Grandma, when are you coming back? I want to play with you again. I was quiet for a moment, heart twisted with too many emotions to name. Was this really him, or? I asked carefully, Sweetheart, did Mommy or Daddy ask you to call me? Silence. Just his breathing. Then a whisper, barely audible. Yeah. Mommy said if you come back we can go to the fun park. And you'll help pay for the robot camp. And just like that something snapped inside me. Cling. Final. So that was it. Still the same game. Still the same playbook. They were using him, his innocence, his love, like a prop. Turning him into a soft-spoken envelope for their next fundraising pitch. They wanted me to pay again. Pay for love. Pay for being missed. Pay for a place in a family that never wanted me to stay, only to serve. But not this time. Never again. I wouldn't fall for the same trap twice. I steadied myself, smoothing the tremor in my voice. Grandma misses you too, sweetie. When I get a chance I'll come visit. But you be good, okay? After I hung up, my hand stayed clenched around the phone. That last trace of warmth I'd been holding on to, that sliver of emotional thread connecting me to them, was gone. Worn down to nothing by a call that had all the sincerity of a rehearsed script. A few days later Jason called again. This time there was no small talk. No tiptoeing. He went straight to the point with the breezy entitlement of someone who'd already decided the answer should be yes. Mom, summer's coming up. Jenny and I both have work and, well, there's really no one to watch Tyler. Think you could come help out for a bit? He keeps saying he misses you. I almost laughed. But all that came out was a slow, dry tone. Oh. Help out. I stretched the words deliberately. If I come back, where exactly am I supposed to stay? Last I heard, your place didn't have room for me anymore. There was a pause. He hadn't expected that. Then came the fumbling attempt at diplomacy. Well, yeah, the apartment's kinda tight. But maybe, I don't know, the couch? Just for a while. Or you could rent something close by. We could maybe chip in for part of the rent. The nerve. That offer rang so loud I could practically hear the calculator clacking in Jenny's head from 3 states away. They wanted me back. Not as a guest, not even as family, but as a full-time on-call nanny. No bed. No comfort. Not even dignity. And I'd get the privilege of paying for it myself with maybe, a partial subsidy for the rent. Like I was some self-funded temp with a mop in one hand and a bank card in the other. The anger rose fast, hot. My knuckles turned white as my nails dug into my palm. But I didn't let it show. I couldn't. They didn't get to see me explode. That would have been a win for them. So I took a slow breath, let the fury slide back into its cage. Then I put on the softest, sweetest tone I could muster. Of course, Jason, I said. I'll get things ready. Can't wait to see my grandson. I paused. And as for the camp fees, we'll talk about that in person. Let them think they'd won. Let them make their little plans. If they wanted my money again, fine. But this time it would be on my terms. I told Nancy everything, word for word. Jason's request. My decision. Every last detail. Her face turned crimson. She shot up from her chair like she was ready to march straight down to the city herself. Kylie, are you out of your mind? They're clearly trying to bleed you dry. You can't go. I gently pulled her back into her seat, placing a calm hand over hers. Nancy, relax, I said softly. I know exactly what I'm doing. My eyes sharpened. This time I'm not going back as a nanny. I'm going back to collect. She blinked. Collect. I gave a cold, humorless smile. They like playing the numbers game, right? Fine. Then let's sit down and really calculate what this so-called family bond is worth. Step 1, housing. They said there's no room for me? Offered the couch? Suggested I pay for my own place? Fine. I'll play along. We sat at the old kitchen table like we were planning a military campaign, laying out every move, every line in the sand. With each detail, Nancy's worry shifted into something else. Her eyes lit up. The fury that had once clouded her face gave way to a focused, electric excitement. Yes, she clapped her thigh. That's exactly what you should do. Let them know you're done being their doormat. I used to pour my heart into that family hoping it would earn me love. All it earned was exploitation. This time I'd be smarter. Sharper. A few days later I started getting ready for the trip back. But not like before. No big tote bags filled with jam or garden-fresh tomatoes or handmade cookies. No mental checklist of who liked what or what might make Jenny smile for once. This time I traveled light. Just a few summer clothes. Essential medications. Nothing more. Because I'd learned something the hard way. No matter how much love you give, you can't force anyone to love you back. All that effort, it only moved me. They never met me halfway. Before I left, I stopped by the local bank and withdrew $2,000 in cash. Split it into neat stacks. Tucked each into hidden pockets sewn inside my clothing. That was all I was bringing. The rest of the house money? Already locked in fixed-term deposits. Safely stored away in a plan Nancy and I had arranged together. She knew exactly where the account book and safety key were. That was my armor. No one could touch it. And just to be safe, I looked her in the eye and said, I'll text you every night. If there's even one day you don't hear from me, don't wait. Call the cops. She didn't flinch. You have my word, Kylie. If they lay one finger on you, I swear, I'll be their worst nightmare. With her as my anchor, I finally felt steady. Ready. A few days later, I stood in front of Jason's door with nothing but a small carry-on suitcase in hand. Jenny opened the door. The second she saw me, her face bloomed into an over-enthusiastic smile, syrupy sweet to the point of nausea. Kylie, you're finally here. Come in, come in. Tyler's been asking about you non-stop. Jason stood up from the couch, his smile mechanical, like a fresh mask he'd just strapped on. Hey Mom. You must be tired from the trip. I nodded without a word and wheeled my suitcase straight into the living room. And there was the couch, already laid out with neatly folded blankets and a pillow, like they were hosting royalty on a discount. Jenny, in her most considerate tone, gestured toward it. The house is really tight right now, so we'll have to ask you to make do just for tonight, okay? Once Tyler's on summer break, you'll probably be tired from watching him all day anyway, so just get some good rest. Every word was dipped in honey, but the message was clear. Stay out of the bedroom. Don't make noise. Don't get comfortable. But I didn't push back. Didn't flinch. I smiled pleasantly, set my suitcase down and said, "Oh, I'm fine. Not a big deal." They both visibly relaxed. I could almost hear the exhale of relief. And that's when I struck. But, I added casually, my back's not what it used to be. The couch is a little Snug. I also get up 2-3 times a night, lights on, lights off. Wouldn't want to disturb your sleep. I paused, watched their faces tighten like strings pulled too fast on a violin. So I was thinking, there's a nice little motel just outside the complex. Not too expensive. I could stay there instead. That way I can take care of Tyler during the day and head back at night. No disruptions. Win-win. My voice was light, calm. But every word hit like a tack on marble floors. They wanted a free live-in nanny? Too bad. This nanny had options and pride. The room froze. They hadn't planned for this. This wasn't part of their script. Jenny recovered first, her voice jumping up a pitch. A motel? Mom, that's so expensive. Why waste money like that? Sure, our place is small, but the couch works just fine. There's no need to spend on something like that. But it wasn't the money that worried her. It was the control. If I wasn't under their roof, I wasn't at their beck and call. No ringing the dinner bell, no guilt tripping me into more favors. I'd be inconvenient. Oh, Jenny, I said, still smiling. Then I turned to Jason. It's just a motel. No big deal. I think I've earned a little comfort, don't you? I gave a small sigh and shrugged. Only thing is, I didn't bring much cash with me. It was all a bit last minute. So, meals the motel. I let the sentence dangle in the air. Their faces changed instantly. They got the message. You invited me, you cover the cost. The polite smiles vanished like smoke. Jason started fidgeting, eyes darting between me and Jenny like a kid caught cheating on a test. Sweat was forming along his brow. Jenny's jaw locked, her lips drawn tight. Her eyes narrowed into sharp little knives. Silence hung in the room, thick and oily. Finally, Jason spoke, his voice stiff. All right, he muttered, pulling out his wallet and handing me a few crisp bills, about $500. For a few days. We'll figure things out later. Jenny let out a sharp breath through her nose and stormed off without another word. I took the money with a neutral expression, not letting an ounce of satisfaction show. Thanks. I'll go settle in, I said. See you tomorrow. I'll be here at 8 sharp to start work. And without giving them another glance, I rolled my suitcase to the door and walked out. The sun was shining. The breeze carried hints of fresh coffee and laundry soap from the corner laundromat. I walked down the block to a modest budget inn and booked a room. It wasn't fancy, but the windows were bright, the bed was soft, and most importantly, no one here looked at me like I owed them something. I set my suitcase down and did the first thing I needed to do. Called Nancy. Step 1 complete. On the other end, she was practically pounding the table. That's my sis. Show them who's in charge. I hung up and sank into the bed, exhaling a long breath. The sunlight streamed through the window, warm and golden. A world apart from the cold, hard couch they'd prepared for me. But I knew better than to get comfortable. This was just the appetizer. The real dish? That $5,000 robotics camp. Let's see what they really want. A mother? Or just the money? At exactly 8 o'clock the next morning, I showed up at Jason's door, punctual as promised. It was Tyler who answered. Grandma. His eyes lit up for a second, that pure, unfiltered joy only a child can offer. But then just as quickly it dimmed. Like he was calculating whether it was okay to feel that happy. I reached out and gently ruffled his hair before stepping inside. Jenny shuffled out of the bedroom, still in pajamas, mid-yawn, forcing a smile that was more thorn than warmth. Oh, you're here, she said. I nodded, my tone neutral. Did Tyler eat yet? She turned toward the kitchen. Not yet. I was just about to make something. I didn't respond. Just sat down on the couch, turned on the morning news and watched quietly. A few minutes later, she emerged with 2 plates of a plain breakfast, setting them on the table without a word. She glanced my way, clearly itching to say something, but in the end swallowed it down. After breakfast, Jason and Jenny were in a rush to get out the door, dressing in near silence. Just as she was zipping up her coat, Jenny tossed a line over her shoulder. Oh, Kylie, just fix something light for lunch. Tyler's laundry is in the machine, you can run that. We'll be back for dinner, so don't cook too late. I looked up, calm and unhurried. Jenny, I didn't sleep well at the motel last night, I said gently. Guess I'm not used to the bed. Feeling kinda low energy today. Then I smiled, still sweet as honey. I'll just take Tyler out for something quick at lunch. As for the laundry, I think you and Jason can handle that tonight. I agreed to help watch Tyler, not run the house. The air thickened. Her face felt like a mask slipping. Her lips parted, eyes narrowed like she was ready to carve something into my forehead. But then she noticed Tyler standing there, watching. She bit it back, clamped her mouth shut and slammed the door on her way out. And just like that, the rules changed. That entire day I did exactly what I said I would. Watch Tyler. Only that. We watched cartoons, built block towers, took a walk downstairs. As for cooking, cleaning, laundry, untouched. At lunch I took him down to a little deli for sandwiches. When Jenny came home early that afternoon, she opened the door and froze. The kitchen looked exactly as she'd left it. Dishes stacked in the sink, garbage bag bulging, counters untouched. Her face tightened on the spot. Before she could even open her mouth, I cut her off with a gentle murmur. Oh, I was feeling lightheaded all afternoon. Just tried to keep Tyler relaxed. Didn't want to risk overexerting myself. Every time she tried to drop a hint, maybe just fold a little laundry? The trash is getting full. I had a calm, immovable answer ready. Pieback's acting up. Doctor told me to avoid overexertion. That's not part of what I agreed to help with. Her jaw kept tightening. Her breaths got shorter. But she said nothing. Because summer was long. And she still needed me. Even with Tyler, I stopped playing the doting pushover. When he begged for a pricey toy, I crouched down and said gently, "Sweetheart, Grandma doesn't have that kind of money right now. And Daddy and Mommy work very hard too. We can't always buy everything we want." When he threw the toy on the ground in frustration, I didn't scold. Just looked him in the eye. Pick it up. Respect your toys, and the people who gave them to you. Bit by bit, I started planting seeds in that little boy's world. Seeds of boundaries. Of gratitude. Of respect. I couldn't change his parents. But maybe, just maybe, I could leave a small part of myself in him. Something that would outlast this summer. At first, Tyler didn't quite know what to make of this new version of Grandma. He seemed confused, torn between habit and hesitation, affection and fear. But children are adaptable and instinctive. Within a few days he was orbiting me again, though now and then he'd still parrot one of Jenny's pre-approved lines. I knew it wouldn't be easy to shift a child's worldview, especially with parents like his feeding him scripts. But I had to try. I used to be the give-it-all kind of grandma. Always offering, always fixing, always smoothing things over before anyone asked. Not anymore. No. I was the contract-based grandma. The job description was crystal clear. Childcare only. Cleaning, laundry, cooking. Those were premium services. Priced separately. Days passed and the deadline for the robotics camp crept closer. $5,000 loomed like a clock ticking just behind Jason and Jenny's eyes. At dinner one evening, Jenny decided it was time for another strategic pitch. "Kylie," she said, delicately sliding some food onto Tyler's plate. "This robotics camp is really something. They've got a teacher from Germany and a bunch of kids have already signed up. It'll really help Tyler's application to a good middle school." She glanced at me as she spoke, trying to read my face. Jason quickly chimed in, tone urgent. "Yeah, Mom, the competition's fierce these days. We really don't want Tyler falling behind." I set down my chopsticks, nodded thoughtfully, and leaned in with apparent curiosity. "Oh really? What do they teach? Who's the instructor? Where are the classes held? How many times a week?" I peppered them with questions, sounding genuinely invested. They jumped at the bait, launching into a flurry of details. Coding, teamwork, international STEM programs. Doing their best to sell it like seasoned marketers. When they finally paused for air, I let the silence hang for a second, then sighed and said, "Sounds great really. But, 5,000? That's quite a bit of money." I added a subtle frown to complete the look. Just enough to imply it might be too much for me. Then casually I switched gears. "But, you two have pretty decent jobs now, right? Didn't you buy that new car last year? And Jenny, wasn't that a new designer bag you posted on Instagram not too long ago? So this $5,000 shouldn't be that much of a stretch, right?" I sipped my tea as their faces froze. Jenny's lips thinned, her skin paling slightly. Jason blinked a few times, like he was reaching for a response but finding nothing to land on. Inside I was smirking. But outwardly I stayed calm and pleasant. 5,000, I repeated softly. "That's not pocket change." Jenny finally forced a smile, thin and bitter. "Mom, you know this is really important for Tyler. Jason and I are both working so hard. We just want to give him a better future. We're not trying to make you pay. Oh, I know, I nodded gently. You both mean well. But I also know your finances. You bought a car. Jenny, you just got a new handbag. So 5,000 shouldn't be that big of a deal. They both flinched just barely, but I caught it. Jason lowered his eyes. Mouth opened, then shut again. He stayed quiet. I lifted my cup and took another slow sip. My funds are already allocated, I said with a shrug. All tied up. I really can't touch them. This one's on you too. Their faces went stiff, like a wall they'd expected to walk through had turned to steel. I gave them one final gentle push. You're the parents. It's your job to invest in your child's future, not rely on someone else to shoulder that cost. Another silence settled across the kitchen, thick and uncomfortable. Jason's hand trembled slightly as he gripped his chopsticks. He glanced at Jenny, then at me. After a beat, he finally spoke. All right, Mom. We'll figure it out ourselves. Jenny said nothing. Her jaw clenched. Her chest rose and fell sharply once before she turned and stormed into the kitchen to clean up. Lips tight, back rigid, the sting of loss written in every movement. She knew she'd lost this round. And that I wasn't the same easy target I used to be. The next morning, right on schedule, I arrived at Jason and Jenny's door. This time not just as grandma but as a woman with boundaries, clarity, and leverage. In my hand was a contract I'd drafted the night before. No more vague expectations. No more emotional blackmail. Just a clear, fair agreement. Jenny opened the door, still wearing that thin, strained smile like a mask about to crack. Morning, Kylie, she chirped. I returned the smile politely and handed her the folder. This is the work agreement I put together yesterday. Her eyes flickered. She clearly hadn't seen that coming. She took the papers, glancing at them warily. Kylie, what's this? It outlines our roles and responsibilities, I said calmly and clearly. You and Jason are both working and I'm happy to help with Tyler during this camp period, but it's important we're all on the same page. This is about respect. About protecting my time and energy, and making sure you know exactly what you can expect from me. She was quiet for a few seconds, flipping through the pages. Every clause was deliberate, unambiguous. Childcare only, no laundry, no meal prep, no errands. Clear hours. A defined schedule. Rest days. Transportation costs. Reimbursed. Overtime. Requires notice and agreement. Her brow tightened as she scanned the lines, jaw tensing ever so slightly. She didn't like it. But she also knew she couldn't refute it. Eventually, she passed the contract over to Jason. The color drained from his face as he read, his fingers fidgeting at the edges. Mom, he muttered, eyes darting from the page to me, what is this? Do we really need contracts for family? I smiled softly. I'm not asking anything from you. I just want clarity. You're asking me to help and I'm willing. But I won't carry the whole house on my back again. That's not helping, it's enabling. Jason and Jenny exchanged looks. Tension swirled in the air between them like rising steam. But in the end, Jason sighed and gave in. If that's what you want. We signed. And just like that, the tone shifted. In the days that followed, everything fell into order. I showed up each morning, punctual and professional. Helped Tyler with breakfast. Oversaw homework. Took him to the park. Every action aligned with the contract. Nothing more, nothing less. Household chores? Not my department. At sundown, I clocked out, heading back to my motel for the night. Jason and Jenny, perhaps begrudgingly, didn't challenge it. A new rhythm set in. Calm, structured. But tension simmered beneath the surface. Jenny's anxiety started to leak through the cracks. She'd glance at me from across the kitchen as she stirred a pot, eyes flickering with thoughts she couldn't seem to say out loud. Her lips would part slightly, then close again, the words retreating like waves pulling back from shore. I noticed it all. But I said nothing. Because I remembered too clearly the months, the years, when I ran around this house like an unpaid maid. How she said nothing then. How she watched in silence as I wore myself thin. Now she could sit with her silence just like I once did. By the second week of my contract-based nanny return, my routine had settled into a quiet rhythm. I clocked in at 8 sharp each morning and clocked out at 6 in the evening like any professional. Tyler and I found our own rhythm too, a calm, respectful bond with clear expectations. But I didn't let my world shrink to the 4 walls of Jason's house. Every afternoon after lunch, I took Tyler to the local community park. It was always alive with motion. Kids chasing bubbles, parents setting out picnic blankets, elderly couples walking slow laps around the lawn. At first, we were just a pair on the sidelines. But it didn't take long before the park regulars began to take notice. "You new around here?" The question came from an older woman in oversized sunglasses, her hair silver and swept neatly back. Her name was Margaret, a church volunteer and part-time community organizer. "Not exactly," I said with a smile. "I'm staying at the motel nearby, just here for the summer to help my son with his boy." Her eyes lit up. "A motel? Well, aren't you living the free life?" Another young mom chimed in, cradling a toddler on her hip. "I thought you were a professional nanny," she said. "You're so gentle with him. And Tyler listens so well." I just smiled. They asked me how I kept Tyler engaged. I shared what I knew: how to use old newspapers to make paper puppets, how to turn pebbles into math games, how we used park benches to learn storytelling. As I spoke, something shifted in their eyes. "You used to be a teacher, didn't you?" "No," I replied softly. "But I raised him myself, for 7 years. With time. With heart." Something about that made the little group fall quiet for a moment. The next day, as soon as we entered the park, a few of them waved us over. One mom with 2 kids handed me a small flyer. "Our church is hosting a family volunteer day on Saturday. We'll be sorting donations, doing some community work with the kids. Would you and Tyler want to come?" I took the flyer with a grateful nod. As I turned back, Tyler looked up at me, eyes full of curiosity. "Grandma, what's a volunteer?" I knelt down to his level and spoke slowly. "It's when you use your time to help others, expecting nothing in return, just because it feels right." He nodded slowly, not fully understanding but sensing the meaning. That evening over dinner, I brought it up casually. "Saturday, I'm planning to take Tyler to a volunteer event at the church. That okay with you too?" Jenny's fork paused midair. "The church," she said, voice tight. "You sure?" "Of course," I replied, keeping my tone light. "It's completely safe, and I think it'll be a good learning experience for him." She didn't respond, but her eyes said everything. On Saturday, we showed up as promised. Tyler and I sorted clothes, labeled boxes, and helped the other kids organize shelves. Margaret praised his focus, and a few of the moms snapped pictures for the church's Facebook group. That night, Jenny came home looking tense. Apparently, one of her coworkers had seen the photos, especially the one of Tyler standing proudly next to his pile of labeled boxes. It had racked up the most likes. Jenny's smile was gone. "Mom, don't you think that's a bit much for him? He's only 7. He had fun," I said lightly, then turned to Tyler. "Didn't you, sweetheart?" Tyler looked up from his blocks on the carpet, his eyes shining. "Mommy, I help with clothes today. Grandma said we were doing good things." Jenny didn't reply. She just disappeared into the kitchen. Over the following days, something subtle shifted. People in the neighborhood began to recognize me. Some waved. The moms started inviting us to sit nearby during picnics. Kids started calling me Miss Kylie. Tyler, too, grew more used to our little daily excursions. He started asking if we could go out and help more often. Me. I wasn't trying to replace Jenny. I was simply reclaiming myself, finding the version of me that thrived in the world, not just behind someone else's kitchen sink. As for Jenny, her initial restlessness curdled into a kind of quiet resentment. She stopped trying to challenge me head-on. But the exhaustion in her face grew deeper by the day. One evening after dinner, Jason came over and handed me a glass of water. His voice was low, unguarded. "That church thing, thank you. Tyler's been different lately. In a good way." I nodded, not needing to say more. But inside I knew. The tide was shifting. This wasn't just childcare anymore. This was influence. And I had just begun to use it. It was Wednesday afternoon. Crisp air, golden light, the kind of autumn day that settles into your skin like a gentle memory. After lunch, as usual, Tyler tugged at my sleeve. "Grandma, let's go to the park." I nodded, grabbed our jackets and a bottle of water. As we stepped outside, he slipped his small hand into mine without a word. We wandered slowly along the path by the lake. Tyler veered off toward the grass, kicking at fallen leaves with no real pattern, just the freedom of a child with nowhere urgent to be. "Grandma," he said suddenly, turning around to look at me, "do you remember where we picked those acorns last time?" I blinked, surprised, but nodded. Of course. You stuffed them all into my coat pocket and said you were going to grow an acorn tree. He burst out laughing. I thought it would grow by the next morning. And you told me we had to water it with milk. I grinned. Who knew you'd believe me? We walked and talked, not about anything profound, just fragments of shared memories. At one point I said, I remember the first time you got a fever. Scared me to death. He looked up. Did I cry? Did you sleep at all that night? I didn't answer. Just reached over and gently tousled his hair. Back at the house, he didn't bolt for the TV like he usually did. Instead, he ran straight into his room. I was in the kitchen getting him some water when he called out, Grandma, come here. I found him sitting on the floor surrounded by paper and markers. He handed me a drawing. This is for you. It's me and you. On the page, a grown-up held a child's hand under a big tree. The lines were crooked. The colors bled outside the edges. But it was perfect. You said we used to come to this park before, he said softly. I took the drawing and nodded. I didn't trust my voice enough to speak. Just then the front door opened. Jason was home. Dad. Tyler ran to him, waving the paper. I drew Grandma today. At the park. Jason took the drawing, glanced at it, and said nothing. A few minutes later he walked over to me. His voice was low. Mom, thank you. Tyler's been different lately. In a good way. I didn't reply. He hesitated, then added quietly, I think I'm starting to understand how you raised him all those years. I met his eyes, calm and unflinching. It's not too late to learn. That night Tyler insisted I read him the same picture book, 3 times in a row. Only when he could barely keep his eyes open did he finally agree to lie down. As I tucked him in, he mumbled, Grandma, can you move back in? I smiled, pulling the blanket up under his chin. Honey, I whispered, someday you'll grow up and you won't need Grandma by your side all the time. The light clicked off with a soft snap. I stood at the doorway for a long moment watching him. He rolled over in his sleep, his voice just a faint murmur in the dark. Grandma. It tugged at something deep inside me. But I said nothing. I simply closed the door, quiet, steady and slow. Friday night the house was unusually quiet. Tyler was in his room coloring. I sat on the living room couch with a book, the television off, the kitchen silent. Only the occasional chirp from outside broke the stillness. Jenny walked out of the kitchen and placed the dishes into the sink. She didn't ask me to help like she used to. Didn't say a word. She turned on the water with her back to me. Jason sat at the dining table, phone untouched. He looked at me. Then at Jenny. Then back again like he was trying to weigh something invisible. Eventually he spoke. Mom. I looked up and murmured, He hesitated. Jenny said, Tyler's been different lately. Bummer. He plays by himself more. Says thank you now. I closed my book and nodded, voice even. That's good. He cleared his throat, voice dropping lower as if he didn't want the water to drown him out. She's having a hard time with it. Thinks maybe you're doing it on purpose. Making him more attached to you. Like it's a competition. I said nothing. Just looked at him. He went on. But I don't think that's it. I think he just feels like you see him. Like he matters. The water stopped. Jenny turned around, dish towel in her hand, and snapped. So what? I don't see him. Is that what you're saying? Jason flinched. I didn't mean. She slapped the towel down on the counter. Do you know what it's been like since she came back? She does only what she wants to do and somehow she gets praised for it. I do the laundry, the meals, the logistics, and no one sees it. Jenny, Jason tried to cut in, but she was already building steam. She wants to prove she's the better mom. That she's more lovable. And you, she pointed at Jason, voice cracking, you're letting her. I didn't say a word. I didn't look at her. I didn't defend myself. I just sat there, eyes on the coffee table where Tyler's watercolor markers lay scattered. I waited. Her anger bounced off silence like fists into soft cotton. No sound. No pushback. Only stillness. Jason sat quiet for a long moment. Then quietly, maybe she just knows better how to love people. Everything stopped. Jenny opened her mouth, then closed it. She stood frozen. Her shoulders trembled once. Then she turned and walked away. The bedroom door clicked shut behind her, soft but final. The next morning, just before dawn, I stepped out of the motel. Jason was already there, standing by my car with a white envelope in his hand. "Mom," he said, voice rough. "Didn't sleep much last night." I didn't reply. He held out the envelope. "It's not money. It's just a piece of paper." I took it, unfolded it. The handwriting was a little uneven, a little rushed. "You were always home to us. We just forgot what that meant." I folded it back up and nodded. "Thank you," I said. He looked at me. "Would you come back? Live with us again?" I shook my head. "Let's wait till Tyler's a little older. Then we'll see." He didn't argue. Just nodded. Then as I turned to leave, he called out again. "Mom." I stopped. "I'm sorry for waiting so long to stand beside you." I lifted a hand and waved, no words. No need. That evening, back at the motel, my phone buzzed. A message from Jenny. "Sorry. I think I was too emotional and overreacted. I didn't really see things clearly before." No punctuation. No greeting. Just a plain, crumpled line of text, like a piece of paper that's been balled up and smoothed back out. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. On the last Friday of August, I folded my few clothes neatly into a suitcase. No goodbyes. No messages in the family group chat. Just like when I came, quiet, clean, leaving no loose ends behind. Tyler was still asleep that morning. I didn't wake him. Instead, I flipped open his sketchbook to the page where we had drawn birds together. On the edge of the paper, I wrote in small, careful print, "If you miss Grandma, draw something and mail it to me. Letters last longer than calls." I zipped the suitcase. Outside the motel, Nancy was already waiting in her car, window rolled down, grin as casual as ever. "Got everything?" she said. "You didn't pack their pots and pans too, did you?" I let out a soft laugh, gave the neighborhood one last glance, and said nothing. By the time we reached the countryside, the sky had just begun to lighten. The house was the same, red brick and 2 stories tall. Only now there were a few new mint plants in the yard, Nancy's latest gardening experiment. As she jumped out of the car, she threw her arms open like a ringmaster announcing a return act. "Well, look who's back, our fearless city warrior, home to retire in glory." I couldn't help but laugh. Dragging my suitcase inside felt less like an ending and more like arriving exactly where I needed to be. The kitchen smelled of warm oats. A familiar snore drifted from the dog bed in the corner. Nothing had changed. And yet, somehow, everything had. Within days, I'd slipped back into my old rhythm. Mornings in the garden. Afternoons making jam. Sometimes a walk through the market with Nancy, arm in arm. The pace was slow, but never empty. One crisp morning, the doorbell rang. "Ms. Kiley," the mailman said, holding out an envelope, "got a letter for you. Looks like it came from the city." I signed for it. The moment I saw the handwriting, my heart skipped. Crooked letters drawn with care. "Tyler." I sat down at the little kitchen table and opened it slowly. A piece of stiff, wrinkled cardstock slipped out. A drawing. A little boy, hand in hand with an elderly woman in a blue dress, standing beneath a tree. High in the branches, 3 birds took flight. On the back, in shaky block letters, "Grandma, are you still making blueberry jam? I want to eat your bread again. My teacher said to write about the warmest person I know. I wrote about you. I miss you." I didn't cry. I just stood and walked to the fridge, pinned the drawing up with a magnet anchoring one corner. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, catching the rows of jam jars along the sill. They glowed amber like bottled pieces of summer. I opened a jar, still warm. Tasted a spoonful. It was sweeter than I remembered. Nancy peeked in from the porch. "What's with the face?" she teased. "Let me guess. Someone wrote asking for money?" I looked up and smiled. "No. It's a reminder that I still matter." She raised an eyebrow. "Honey, you run this county. You're the CEO of Blueberry Jam Incorporated." I laughed but didn't answer. Instead, I folded Tyler's letter and tucked it into the wooden box in the back of the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept the important things. Because aging doesn't mean losing value. Sometimes it just means being needed. In a different way.